and she was having Steve Buscemi sightings in Slovakia, right?
That's great.
I know. It was Buscemi and me. I know.
Conceptually awesome.
And she every day would post a letter to Buscemi. Yeah. But then what happened was I met this guy in January, and he can tell that story. So you met me, why?
Well, I wanted to get into acting. This was like my first, film, first acting experience in with Hallie, and the way it came about was really unorthodox because I wanted to get into it, and so I got a chance to meet with Ingrid through a mutual friend, which was really fortunate. But it was just to talk about getting into acting, getting an agent, taking classes, and she kind of afterwards, I came away with. It's really hard to get an agent without experience, and it's hard to get experience without an agent. Catch 22. So good luck. Read some books, take some classes. See you later. No, but then a couple weeks later, I got a call from her really unexpectedly, and she was asking me if I wanted to audition for a film she was working on. And at the time I'd met her, I didn't know about this other film that she was working on the script for with her daughter Hallie. So I went into Toronto with 2 monologues prepared, and
what were the 2 monologues?
One was just like I don't know if it was from a play. It was like an online kind of one. I just searched male 16, and it was about this guy whose mother died, and that really hit home with Ingrid because she had a good friend whose mother just died as well, and that kind of ties into the film. And then another was from Little Miss Sunshine, Paul Dano. So went in with those 2 monologues.
Doesn't he not talk in the movie?
Yeah, but no.
So that's a good monologue for you.
That breaking point, breaking point where they pull over to the side of the road and he just lets go because he figures out he can't be a pilot because he's colorblind.
Right.
So went in with those and screen tested with Hallie and did the monologues, and we did a Meisner exercise, and then
what was the screen test?
The screen test was us singing on a park bench in Ramsden Park, which is right across from Ingrid's house, which is in the movie. The purple house, that's Ingrid's actual house. So, did that singing, it was kind of drizzling, so we had umbrellas over us, and a couple days later she called me wondering if I wanted to be in this movie.
Well, but what got me about the screen test was he was really nervous, and my daughter had the part. And he's quite a competitive guy, right? Yeah, he's quite a competitive guy. And so there was all this really interesting tension between him and my daughter. He was slightly resentful that she didn't have to audition. This is what I was picking up anyway. There was there was resentment, there was attraction, there was a kind of detachment. And at the end of the screen test was fine. They were singing a song. But at the end, he kind of went to touch her and then pulled away. And to me, that was the thing that really nailed it, because it's 17 feels like a real limbo to me, where you're sort of censoring impulses and you're sitting on things and there's an awkwardness and you want to make a move but you don't know quite how, and you're thinking things and they come out the wrong way in your mouth, and it's just awkward. And the whole screen test was excruciatingly awkward, especially for this last moment. When I saw him reach for her and then pull away, I was done. That's it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I can imagine it happening.
Did you try to retain that level of awkwardness on set as you shot this thing and developed a relationship?
I think it's just a natural thing that I'm naturally awkward and all this energy that I don't know what to do with. But it's the same with any teenager, any 17-year-old. In between 2 different phases in their life of being a kid and being an adult, and not knowing how to act, what to say, what to do, always thinking is this coming off right? Am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Are they into me? Are they not into me? Did I screw up? And it's the same with Hallie. I think that uncertainty. What am I going to do after high school? Am I going to travel? Am I going to go to school? Am I going to get a degree? It's it's the chaos and confusion that we all went through. And
while we were making the film too.
Yeah.
there was chaos while we were making the film.
It was not organized chaos, but I wouldn't call it chaos, would you?
Well, I guess I was feeding on that energy a little bit, and also the fact that I was the sole writer, director, producer, and also trying to kind of wrangle my family, who were giving me their summer, but also had their lives lives to deal with, you know? So, for example, there would be a scheduled day of shooting with my aunt, but then she would have to do 25 errands and teach 2 classes that just came up, so that day would have to get rescheduled. So we were constantly in a state of like having a plan and changing the plan, and having to be incredibly flexible, and working with, you know, everyone in the film is essentially acting for the very, very first time. And my family, very few of them actually speak English, you know, so sometimes they're just, I'm feeding them the lines and they're repeating exactly what I'm saying, the way they're hearing it, just phonetically. And, you know, being there with them, the crew was, so my husband came along, his flight was booked, he was the sound recordist. My son got dropped because he didn't want to be a production assistant. He'd been the lead in my film before MODRA, so he was like not going to be like a PA. He was going to go from like the star of the movie to a PA, so he was like, I'm not interested. So my husband came, Alexander came, and I brought along a cinematographer. That was the entire production crew, 1 camera, 1 sound, and I also brought my editor. So I had an editor, and every day the editor would assemble the footage of the day and I would watch it, and that's when I would look at the actual, not what I imagined to happen, but what was actually happening between them on camera, and then I would rewrite and we would rehearse and we would shoot new things the next day. So for example, the fight that they had when he calls her fat ugly bitch, was not scripted, and I just felt like these two had to have it out because there was quite a bit of tension. Would you say? What was going on between you and Hallie?
I was stupid. I didn't really, it was like, you know, my first time, like it was the longest I'd ever been away from my family, and there was the whole family dynamic with like Ingrid and her family, Hallie, John, and all the Slovaks, and like I wanted it to be as professional as possible, and I just wasn't really sure like what that meant, and I think I did something way different than what being professional actually was, and that was building like a good relationship, you know, with your peers and with your coworkers, and it wasn't like, sour or anything, but like it wasn't as great as it could have been, our friendship. But afterwards, like we became really good friends.
Yeah. But you weren't really friends during the shoot.
Yeah, no, it was. We were like still figuring each other out like the entire 5 weeks, and like playing like 17-year-olds do, right? Like feeling each other out.
It was so great, right? Because these aren't 20-year-olds pretending to be 17. They're actually going through this stuff. They're actually entering their last year of high school. Everybody's asking what they want to do with their lives. They don't know. He's away from home for the very first time. You hadn't even had alcohol.
Yeah, no, I didn't drink.
He hadn't even had a glass of wine.
Everything I'm drinking in that is like juice.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask.
No, because I promised his parents he was not going to be drinking, and so I was dry the whole shoot in solidarity with him, right? But you know, he hadn't had a glass of wine, and he was thrown into this film, and you were fairly homesick too, you know. And like you said, Hallie was surrounded by her family, and you know, we were all sort of together, and what was happening between them, I mean, that was the beauty of being in this small village, living together, is I could observe things that were happening outside the shoot. So for example, this guy was running around constantly. He was jumping, he was leaping.